President Biden charged Vice President Harris with addressing the root causes of mass migration at the border by going to those Central American countries. She's consistently defended his handling of the border crisis. I don't need to tell you, voters overwhelmingly disapprove of how the Biden-Harris administration has handled the border by giving the nomination to one of the leaders of the border effort. Aren't Democrats doubling down on one of your party's biggest vulnerabilities?
Well, let's remember to start with the facts, and that is that border crossings now are lower than they were in the last year of the Trump administration. But recognize, and I know that Kamala Harris knows this is a problem that ultimately has to be solved by Congress. We need the tools in order to have more resources at the border, to have more resources in the states and cities that are supporting migrants, and I believe we need to create a pathway to citizenship. All of that is a part of what we need to do for comprehensive immigration reform. Kamala Harris will work with Congress and get that done. Donald Trump, by contrast, recognizes that Democrats and Republicans worked together starting last fall, negotiated a deal. 2 days before they were getting ready to vote on that border deal, Donald Trump called on the Republicans who had praised the deal to back away from it because he wanted chaos at the border, because he thought it would help him in this race on November 5th. So it's really a question of who do you trust on the border? Do you trust someone who has actually been a prosecutor, who has been there in a border state, who works with Congress toward a solution? Or do you trust someone who says, chaos is politically helpful to him, so he's just going to go with that?
She has signaled that she's going to keep in place the new policies from President Biden, cracking down on asylum claims at the border if she's elected. You have criticized this new policy as, quote, a functional ban on asylum, and you've said that, quote, we can and should do better. You think her campaign is making a mistake?
I think we can do better, but I really want to underscore what a president can do all by herself on immigration issues is quite limited, particularly when Congress will not authorize the resources needed. That's what creates real chaos at the border. What we need is comprehensive immigration reform, and that requires working together, Republicans and Democrats, and a president that wants to work with Congress, not someone like Donald Trump who thrives on the chaos and thinks it builds him up as a strong man.
One of the issues President Biden said he would focus on in the remainder of his term is reform of the U.S. Supreme Court. Among the changes he's reportedly considering are term limits and an enforceable ethics code for justices. Now, you've been working on this issue in the Senate. What realistically do you think you could get through Congress? Not what should be, but what do you think you could actually accomplish?
Yeah, well, I think we've got all the Democrats who are ready for meaningful ethics reform to bind the Supreme Court. And we're working on changes to the Supreme Court. It can be term limits. It could be adding the number of justices, things we can do without having to have a constitutional amendment. I think what President Biden is doing is think about this moment. Here is a man who's been a transformative president. He's got an enormous amount done, and yet he has stepped away and he has passed the torch to Kamala Harris. Why has he done that? He's done it as an act of patriotism for our nation. And he is saying we not only have to have a president who is here for the nation and who will heal us and bring us together, we also have to change our Supreme Court, because right now we have a Supreme Court that has basically jumped the guardrails and is out there giving power to the president, saying that the president can commit any act that the president wants, saying that Congress cannot authorize agencies to act. So we've got a Supreme Court that is actively undermining our democracy. And I think what Joe Biden will do over the next 6 months is he's going to keep drawing that to the attention of the American people and reminding them when they vote in November, the Supreme Court is on the ballot. And that is a good reason to vote for Kamala Harris and to vote for Democrats in both the Senate and the House.